Welcome back to HistoryCrafts. Today we talk about the samurais. When you think about samurai, what comes to your mind? For me, I think of, games like Ghost of Tsushima, Total War, Shogun 2, movies like The Last Samurai, 47 Ronins, stuff like this. But how much do we actually know about the samurai? Today we're diving into their world and history, exploring who they were, how they rose to power, and what made them so legendary. The samurais had their beginning in the Heian period, which ran from 794 to 1185. This was when Japan's capital was in Kyoto, and life was at the top. It was all about art, poetry, and court politics. But while the elite was busy writing love poems and perfecting tea ceremonies, the rest of Japan was less peaceful. Land disputes were common, and wealthy landowners needed muscle to protect their property. That's where the samurai came in. The word samurai comes from the Japanese verb zaburau, which means to serve. Originally, they were just hired fighters, mercenary or bodyguards, you could say. But over time, they became a lot more than that. Their skills, loyalty, and reputation turned them into a powerful warrior class. One of the first known famous samurai is Taira no Masakado, who rebelled against the central government, claiming the title of new emperor in eastern Japan, marking one of the earliest major samurai-led uprisings in history. During the Heian period, samurai were equipped with weapons and armor suited for mounted archery. Their gear typically included yumi, tachi, tanto, or a naginata. The yumi is a longbow. It was central to samurai combat during this time, as they were fighting a lot on horses. The tachi was a curved sword used for slashing in close combats. The tanto is a small single or double-edged dagger traditionally used by samurai for close combat, personal defense, and in rituals like seppuku. The naginata, a pole weapon with a curved blade, was favored for its versatility in combat, allowing sweeping attacks and defense, and was often associated with samurai women trained in self-defense. As for their armor, the samurais wear the o-yoroi, a large box-like armor made from leather and iron scales, laced together with silk or leather cords, providing protection while allowing mobility on a horseback. The helmet of the samurai is called kabuto. These helmets were often decorated with exaggerating designs for intimidation or fear. This equipment emphasized mobility and protection for the mounted warfare, reflecting the samurai's role as an elite cavalry in a fragmented war-torn Japan back in these days. And as I would say, these samurais were hired as bodyguards or as mercenaries. The choice of weapons by the samurai would later change by time, as well as their fighting style. During the Kamakura period, in 1185 to 1333, the samurai began to rise more and more in power. This is thanks to a man named Minamoto no Yoritomo, one of Japan's most powerful warriors. Minamoto rose to power by leading the Minamoto clan to victory in the Genpei War in 1180 to 1185 against the rival Taira clan, culminating in their defeat of the Battle of Dan no Ura. He then consolidated his authority by securing recognition from the emperor, establishing a military government, the Bakufu, in Kamakura, and appointing his loyal samurais to key positions, ensuring the centralization of power under his rule. Yoritomo set up the Kamakura shogunate, Japan's first military government, and became the country's first shogun. The term shogun literally means general who suppresses barbarians. Sounds intense, right? So basically he was the top dog and the emperor was more of a figurehead at this point. The samurais were ruling the lands of Japan. This move put the samurai at the center of power. They weren't just fighters or bodyguards. They were lawmakers, tax collectors, and enforcers. The samurai class became actually the backbone of Japan, and their influence would only grow from here on out. One of the best depictions of this era is the night attack of the Sancho Palace, which shows samurais in action. It's chaotic, violent, and a perfect snapshot of how they got stuff done back in the days. But how did samurais actually think, and what did they believe in? It wasn't just about being good with a sword. They had a whole code of ethics called Bushido, or the way of the warrior. This wasn't just a rulebook, it was a way of life. Bushido emphasized loyalty, honor, and self-discipline. Samurai were expected to serve their lords without question, face death with courage, and protect the weak. It's what made them respected and feared. But Bushido wasn't their only philosophy in their lives. Many samurai practiced Zen Buddhism, which taught mindfulness and inner peace. Others followed Confucian principles, focusing on family loyalty and moral behavior. Together, these ideas shaped the samurai into more than just fighters. A great example of Bushido in action is Miyamoto Musashi, one of Japan's most legendary swordsmen and samurais. He fought over 60 duels and never lost a single one. His most famous showdown was in 1612 against Sasaki Kojiro on Ganryu Island. Musashi showed up late, armed with just a wooden oar he carved into a sword, and completely outsmarted Kojiro. Kojiro was famous for his flashy swallow cut move. This technique was a lightning fast upward slash designed to mimic the motion of a bird's flight. This move was deadly and nearly impossible to counter. It is said that Musashi chose to come late to throw Kojiro off and throw him off his rhythm. When he finally showed up, he carried his oversized wooden bokken. Using his improvised bokken's superior reach and a sudden powerful strike, Musashi cracked Kojiro's skull and killing him instantly. This is just one example why he is such a big symbol for the Bushido, the way of the warrior. Miyamoto was no ordinary samurai, he was a ronin. A ronin was a samurai in feudal Japan who had no lord or master. The term translates to wave man, symbolizing someone adrift or wandering, like a wave on the sea. By codifying practices as ways, Japanese culture provides individuals with structured paths to cultivate not just technical skill, but also ethical and spiritual growth, promoting a life of purpose and balance. For example, Aikido, the way of harmony with energy, Judo, the way of softness, or Shado, the way of tea, or even Kado, the way of flowers. By the time of the Sengoku period, things in Japan had gotten worse and messy. Feudal lords called daimyos were fighting for control and the whole country was basically at war. This era saw some of the most epic samurai battles in history. During this time, three major leaders emerged: Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. Nobunaga was ruthless and introduced firearms to the battlefield. Hideyoshi, a former peasant, managed to unite most of Japan, and Ieyasu finished the job creating the Tokugawa shogunate, which ruled Japan for over 250 years. The Battle of Okehazama in 1560 was a turning point for Oda Nobunaga. Nobunaga faced a way bigger army than he had. The other army was led by Imagawa Yoshimoto, who was marching toward Kyoto to assert his dominance over the region. His forces numbered around 25,000, while Nobunaga just had 2,000 soldiers. While Imagawa's troops were resting and celebrating an early victory, Nobunaga used the cover of a thunderstorm to launch a surprise assault. His forces overwhelmed the unprepared Imagawa soldiers, and Nobunaga personally led the charge that resulted in Yoshimito's death. The largest and most important conflict of the Sengoku period was the Battle of Sekigahara. It is often also called as the decisive battle that shaped Japan. It was fought between the forces of Tokugawa Ieyasu, the Eastern Army, and the coalition loyal to Toyotomi Hideyori, the Western Army, led by Ishida Mitsunari. Ieyasu's forces, numbering around 74,000, clashed with Mitsunari's 82,000 troops. This battle is so famous because it led Tokugawa to consolidate power and establish the Tokugawa shogunate, which ruled Japan for the next 250 years, during a peaceful Edo period. During the Sengoku period, samurai armor, their weapons, as well as their fighting style changed. Instead of their taishi and tanto, samurais would now carry their katana and the wakizashi as their daisho. Daisho meaning large and small, and is a matched pair of traditionally made Japanese swords. These swords were made out of the Tamahagane steel. If you want to know more about the Tamahagane steel and its history, you can check out our latest video on steel. Instead of the naginata, samurais would now carry the yari, a type of spear, which was also used for its reach and versatility. The Tanegashima was a matchlock musket and it revolutionized combat. The replacement of the bulky Oyori armor with the lighter and more flexible Doamaru or Harakimi armor allowed greater mobility for both mounted and foot soldiers. Key aspects of their fighting style during this period included the Kenjutsu. Kenjutsu emphasized on precision, speed, and cutting power. Techniques were often adapted for dueling or chaotic melee encounters. Iyajutsu, the art of drawing the sword and striking in one motion, gained prominence for its efficiency and surprise factor. The Sengoku period was brutal, but also cemented the samurai's role as warriors and leaders. Their loyalty, strategy, and their sheer skill were on full display. During the time of the Edo period, which spanned from 1603 till 1868, things had calmed down in Japan. It was unified under the Tokugawa rule, and samurai had less fighting to do. Instead, they became administrators, scholars, and cultural leaders. One big part of the new role was practicing cultural arts, like the tea ceremony. This wasn't just about making tea. It was a ritual that emphasized discipline, tranquility, and respect. Samurai also got into calligraphy, poetry, and even Zen meditation. The peaceful Edo period gave samurai a chance to refine their minds as much as their sword skills, showing that they were more than just warriors. After hundreds of years at peace, the Meiji Restoration changed everything. Japan decided to modernize, adopting Western technology and reorganize its government. The samurai system didn't fit into this new world. Emperor Meiji abolished the samurai class, creating a conscripted army instead. Some samurai tried to fight back, like Saigo Takamori, who led the Satsuma Rebellion, but they couldn't stop the tide of change. The Satsuma Rebellion, or Meiji Rebellion, ended in the Battle of Shiroyama on September 24, 1877, a dramatic and symbolic fight between Saigo Takamori's remaining samurai and the Meiji's government modernized army. Saigo, leading roughly 500 loyal samurai, faced a force of around 30,000 soldiers armed with modern rifles, cannons, and even Gatling guns. The samurai, equipped with traditional swords and limited firearms, made their final stand at this battle. Despite being heavily outnumbered and outgunned, the samurai fought valiantly in a hopeless last charge. Nearly all the samurai, including Saigo Takamori, were killed, with only a handful of survivors. The battle marked the effective end of the samurai era. Samurais aren't just historical figures, they're symbols of honor and strength, and the legacy still continues to inspire us nowadays. So, thanks for joining us on this journey through the world of the samurai. From fierce warriors to cultural icons, they left a mark on the history that we will never forget. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what historical topic you'd like us to cover next. And as always, this is HistoryCrafts, where history crafts itself.